Hello everybody. Thank you so much for joining our conversations on PAZA. PAZA, a Swahili word meaning to amplify, is an initiative by Disability Trust. PAZA seeks to document and create visibility for the experiences of women with disabilities globally. We look forward to hearing from you, so remember to share your support and feedback on our social media platforms. To continue this conversation, please follow our Twitter page at PAZA Podcast. For more content on Disabilities work and projects, please follow Disability on Twitter and Instagram at this_ability_KE and on Facebook at disability.ke. Now, let's get into today's topic of discussion. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. And today we wanted to discuss the role of unpaid care work, guardianship, and legal capacity, particularly exploring the experience of women with disabilities within the global pandemic. And we are very pleased to be joined by amazing speakers who are amazing champions for children with disabilities. And I will let them introduce themselves. So can we start with you, Sylvia? Could you introduce yourself, please, and the work that you do?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Sylvia Mochabo. I am the founder of Andy Speaks for Special Needs Persons, a graphic designer by profession, a mother of 3 boys, 2 of whom are on the autism spectrum. And raising the children is exactly what led me to do what I do in terms of advocacy.
Great. Thank you very much. Caroline, would you like to go next?
Good afternoon. My name is Carolyn Makana. I'm a mother of 3 boys, my eldest son, Ethan, being on the autism spectrum. I'm a lawyer by profession, and my husband and I also run a school here in Nairobi for special needs kids. And I'm pleased to join you this afternoon.
Thank you very much. And we have the team from Disability joining us as discussants. Maria Rosa, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Thank you, Lizzie. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Maria Rosa. I'm from Ecuador, and I'm the project manager in Disability.
Thank you. Millicent?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Millicent Ojuang, Operations and Admin Manager, Disability.
And Clarence?
Hi, everyone. My name is Clarence Okune, Media Officer, Disability Trust.
My name is Lizzie Kiama, and I am the Managing Trustee at Disability Trust. And our work really is to advance the rights and inclusion of women with disabilities in Kenya. To get into it, Sylvia, you run an organization, Andy Speaks, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, true.
Could you tell us about what led you to start the organization, some inspiration behind it? And you've alluded to it, but please give us some more details.
Oh, sorry for that. So I am a single parent, just to add on to that. And starting off this journey was a bit confusing at first. The minute you get the diagnosis and you do not know where to start, who to turn to, where this came from, what this is, because most of the time it is progressive. In my side of the story, first we had a convulsive disorder before we discovered that my second child, who's called Andrew, was on the autism spectrum. And by the time I was being given this news, I was already pregnant. It was actually almost the same day with my last born, who after his birth also we saw that his milestones were delayed. Although his were not as severe. My son spoke at 5. And the journey, by the time I could get a grip and get evaluation and actually get to see the right doctors in this setup, the journey of actually getting him to school, because he would be accepted and admitted into a school, and after a while you see there is no progress, then there comes other demands from the schools. Then when you're sitting for parent-teacher conferences and you're being looked at like they cannot handle your child anymore, they don't understand what's going on. So let's just say the journey was a bit frustrating, coupled with trying to get through a divorce at the same time was not one of the easiest things. So I try to find my way through that forest, because that's what it felt like you were just put in the beginning of the forest and you're told, let's meet on the other side. There is no map, there is no torch, just figure your way out. So when I sat and I tried to figure how the journey had been, wonder how many other parents were going through a similar situation. How is it across the country? Because there was also the stigma that comes with it in the social setting and also within the families and within the school setup also, because by now the children, you could see that because of the development, they were also getting frustrated. And apart from that, I'm a prayerful person, so I kept receiving this message of Proverbs 31, 8-9, which was to speak on behalf of those who cannot speak for themselves and fight for their justice. That was it back in 2018. I knew deep inside I used to do on social media advocacy and just talk about what autism is. And not many people actually believed that my son was autistic because he looks like a normal child. And that's how slowly but surely I got to connect with other parents. And by the end of the 2018, my sister also has a child who has Down syndrome. And I spent some time with her. And I finally decided, okay, when I did an interview with the daily newspaper. And from there, the way the story came out, when you take a retrospect and look at the story from the outside, that's when everything made sense about the conviction of doing something, the Bible verse, the experience, that what was going on around me. And that's when I decided, okay, so because the title of the article that was done in the Daily Nation, that was the last day of December 2018, was my son finally calls me mom. That's how the name Andy Speaks came about. So we want to be the champions on the ground and the voice for persons with neurodevelopmental disabilities. So it's not only just autism, but the full neurodevelopmental disorder group. To just looking at the rules and regulations that are there, there is a lot of lack of inclusion. And at the same time, we look at the education systems, there are no sufficient schools. When we look at the health system, it was quite a daunting task to actually find a doctor who knows what it is that you need. So you're sent from one place to another before we could find out what was the best intervention for him. And so to see how best this could be corrected, I decided I will take up the mantle. And through the Andy Speaks for Special Needs Persons Africa, we started the work for advocacy so that parents can come out so that we can end stigma, because we are better in bigger numbers, and engage with government and other bodies that are responsible for looking out and setting policies for our children, so that we are also included in all the decision making that is going on at the moment. So that's in summary what Andy Speaks is all about and how it came about.
Wow. Thank you. Caroline, could you tell us about your own experience, both from a professional and a personal standpoint?
I relocated back to Kenya. I lived in the UK in around 2008. At the time, my youngest brother was very ill in the UK, and I had just had my son, Ethan, my first son. After about 18 months after he was born, I noticed that there was a bit of a difference with him in terms of his receptive behavior, just playing with other children. There was something that was different. But because I was so overwhelmed with my youngest brother being ill at that time, I sort of put it behind my mind and said, look, when I get to Nairobi, I'll figure what's wrong. So when we came back to Nairobi, I then started sort of researching to find out what was wrong with my son. So we went to see our pediatrician, and he said, look, your son seems to be on the autism spectrum. And I was like, what is that? So then we were referred to the Gateroods in Muthaiga, and we went there. They run a program called the Special Educational Program, which involves different professionals, occupational therapists, speech therapists, pediatricians, and they sort of sit with you in a room and they assess your child and, try to figure out what might be wrong with the progression of the child. So after that meeting, I was told that Ethan is autistic. And I think that was probably one of the hardest days of my life. And, the first question you ask is, what do we do about it? Is there any medication? Is there any treatment for it? And then you're told there's no treatment. So then that's how the journey began. And, sort of getting back and trying to settle down, trying to figure out life. And I was a single mother at the time. I was lucky enough to get a job locally in a bank. Getting childcare at the time was also difficult because your child is non-verbal, and just getting people who understand how that works was very difficult. You go to work, you come home, the child is very unsettled. But eventually, by God's grace, I got a very good nanny. And then we got a really good routine going. So at that moment, I was settled. And then subsequently, I joined the judiciary and I had to travel a lot. But thankfully, I had a really good nanny at home and a really good support system. My parents and my siblings were very supportive. So that allowed me to work and focus on providing with ease. And as the years went by, he was quite stable. He was at a school in Nairobi. He had settled in quite well. So we had a good routine going on. And I felt like he thrived from that. Just that stability and the structures really helped. And then we also put him on a good diet that had been suggested for him. So the hyperactivity reduced. So that was good. So subsequently, I met my husband about 4 years ago. The funny thing is that he had actually volunteered and worked in the UK at a school for autism. And as God will have it, he also had a dream of starting a school, and so did I. So it happened that after Ethan had been to a few schools and we just felt as though we were not getting the support that we required for him, we decided we'll start our own. It just started very small in terms of like a homeschooling environment, and then other parents joined as well. So down the line, it's been very, very fulfilling to see other children coming into our space and just being able to benefit from whatever my husband learned and what he knows about autism. And other children as well have joined with other conditions, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome. It's been very fulfilling to be able to do that, and also, sort of have my career going on at the same time. And we also have two younger boys as well. And it's been I think finding out that my son was autistic was the thing that turned my life around. I think that made me the best version of me, and I'm truly lucky and privileged to have him as my eldest son. I think that's about it in terms of the journey so far.
Great, thank you. Did you have any prior experience with disabilities before your children? Sylvia?
Personally, no, I'd never, not even like in where we were living. Before growing up, I know I'd only seen one person, but according to the African culture, most of the people just brand them as that's a mad person,
Right.
and stuff like that. So later on, respect is when you're like, actually, this person could have been, that person could have been, you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
my family, no, and actually, to say part of the strife that came in the family when there is a lot of the finger pointing of this came from your family, this came from your family, because it's usually an initial reaction after the diagnosis.
Right. And yourself, Caroline?
When I lived in the UK, I did. I lived in a very close-knit neighborhood. I think while I was raising my son, a couple of people at our church did point out that they thought maybe he was on the autism spectrum, but I didn't take any sort of serious thought into that. being that I was already, going through the issue with my brother. But thankfully, where I lived, it was a very open thing. You'd see people on their wheelchairs. And my brother was also on a wheelchair because he had multiple sclerosis. And when he went into a care home, I also got to interact with other people with disabilities. So I did have some personal experience on that level, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just a follow-up to, you mentioned the school. Could you tell us the name of the school?
The school is called Haven Cottage, and we are located in Kileleshwa on Othaya Road. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any non-disabled children in the school?
No, at the moment we're doing purely special needs.
Okay. Do you think it's an environment that you could bring in non-disabled children? Do you think it's something that would probably add value to them as well?
We've had vocational training, and we also have a holiday training program, and we've partnered with a friend of ours in ICT, and she's a family ICT consultant. We have after the normal term is over, we usually have a 2-week vocational training program where we integrate our children with other children, and they get on quite well, and it's been very, very very great to see other children learn about children with special needs and learning to be more inclusive, learning to be more patient, just seeing children grow up, having that mental capacity to be inclusive is very special. And I think when we start now, it will become, the stigma will go out the window. And I think as we've been raising our children, we've really seen a lot of stigma, encountered a lot of it. But when you're more inclusive and more open about your own story, about your own journey, I think people are more understanding and more inclusive. And not talking about it is really very counterproductive, I think.
Yes.
So we're very open and we talk about it a lot. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. So in this situation where we are social distancing and isolating, I'm wondering what your experience has been in terms of the burden of unpaid care work, some of the things that you do for your family as women, as mothers. Could we have a conversation about that? And if you think it has increased that burden, in this difficult times, has it reduced? Do you have support at home? Is your partner at home? Do you have extra help from family and things like that? So I'm just wondering, from your perspective, is that something that you feel comfortable sharing? What's going on?
It's everything has gone like tenfold in terms of, you had routines before, because children on the autism spectrum thrive on routine. And right now, it's easier now because it's been a month for our family right now. The fact that we are all now bundled up living in an apartment setting makes it even harder, because the space for playing is not there. Like they usually go out to play over the weekends. So they're not seeing their regular weekday routine. They're not seeing their Saturday routine. They're not seeing their Sunday routine. So it was like their world came to a standstill. I've seen regression in my son, regression in terms of now there's no therapy because he gets speech therapy and occupational therapy from school, which is subsidized. So you can't even think of calling in the therapist to the home because, of course, the risk of exposure. Personally, I was so panicked because when this news broke out, I had just had a meeting. We were at an award ceremony with very many people from everywhere. And I'd had a personal contact with an in-law who had come from London. So that mental destabilization on fear that, oh my God, maybe I carried it, I picked it from somewhere. So it took 2 weeks, first of all, to settle mentally. I was so scared that I personally started seeing symptoms, and my son was recovering from a flu. So on top of the flu, the fear of even going into a hospital was also heightened. Because I was like, no, I was just doing this medication. We've used this before. And because you're trying to keep sane, a teenager who's come and home and he's not following a timetable because he thinks it's holiday time, and you're like, you need to continue with your studies. Business was interrupted majorly because I'm self-employed. We are the first ones who got hit. We had just organized a medical camp for special children, 6,500 special kids, which was supposed to happen on Saturday. This is Friday, with everything is ready.
Oh.
Then you're told it can't happen. So by the time you can consolidate all these, cancel with suppliers, cancel with people, schools, children, buses. So let's just say my life was upside down for a bit. Then now you start adopting, and you have to be a teacher, I have to be the doctor, I still have to be the mother, and trying to figure out what these kids are going to eat, because now all of a sudden there is no income stream because all of them are people. So I've tried to find solace currently I use my graphic design skills to communicate and push for the advocacy and awareness through doing posters and caricature. So that is now where I found my sanity and stability, because I'm locked up. The kids are all, I have a child with ADHD major who settling down is off the window. We've had so much broken items in the house that you can't shout anymore. So you find you're using so much energy trying to control these children because the level of meltdowns are intense. Andrew would wake up screaming from morning to evening. He's nonverbal. I can't figure out what he wants. You've tried to give him everything. You don't know if he's sick because he can't express his emotions. He only has 3 words, which will be more of items like, I want this, or he will just give you 1 word, you figure out the rest of it. And let's just say, if I haven't gone crazy so far, God is great. And we're just trying to, like right now, I've tried to come up with a different routine. Yesterday, I was being a teacher and a therapist. Today, I'm just trying to sit in the office. So you see, when you have routine, you have time for you, for self-care, to regularize your mental state. So, and then for a frontliner like myself, I still have other parents who are looking up to me for support. So you have a lot of burdens to carry, but like they say, we're women, you're expected to be able to sail through everything. So far, I'm just trying to restructure and see what works. So yesterday, I would say, was the first day we had an extremely good day with no drama from morning to evening. This is 1 month later. So today is me time, not really me time, is my day at the office. So that way I'm able to balance myself. So when I'm here, I'm able to deal with other parents and also try and, because we're working on proposals of how to support and be a support system to them. So we're working on that. And when I go home, I remove this coat and become mommy. Yes.
Wow. Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. I don't know how we can lift you up as well, because you definitely need lifting. I will lift you up in prayer.
It's a lot to bear.
Yeah.
Caroline,
would you like to share?
Yeah, sure. I can totally relate with Sylvia. Keeping the kids, keeping them structured throughout the day, every day in the same environment is very monotonous. You also feel very anxious, so you can imagine how they feel. Like our eldest son, Ethan, I find he thrives with monotony. It's very interesting. He doesn't mind being secluded to do his own thing. As long as you structure him and give him activities throughout the day, he's very okay with that. We're very lucky that we live also in the same place where the school is, so we have a lot of space for the kids to play, and the playground is sufficient, and we have a garden and we have dogs. I feel for them. When I look at them, I don't feel like they're anxious or they feel like anything is missing. Although a couple of days ago, they did get into the car and said, we're going. And they wanted to leave and they wanted to go. And, they were screaming their heads off, the toddlers especially. But Ethan, the elder, seems to be quite settled because we have all his materials. He's doing a bit of music. Then at some moment he'll go and play. Then he'll do a bit of gardening. Then before you know it, the day is over. And we're just rolling with the punches, taking it a day at a time. and just enjoying our family time together with their dad, myself, and thankfully we have an amazing nanny for the toddlers and a nanny for Ethan. So there's a lot of support, and everybody's sort of able to take time out for themselves and just do what they need to do. And I do feel for Sylvia. I wish she could bring the boys over and they can all play. But now with the social distancing, it's really difficult because everyone is sort of just keeping to their own space to reduce on infections. So far, I feel like we've managed quite well.
The next question was about how the children are managing their isolation, but you've kind of talked about it in your last response.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I'm wondering in this current situation, are there any opportunities? We've talked about challenges quite a bit. Do you think there are any opportunities, and could you share some tips with mothers or guardians that are also going through, a similar situation?
Sometimes, you can try to see through the smoke, but the smoke is so thick that as much as you try, you're just waving your hand and you can only see like 10 centimeters from where you are. As there is the good side is because you spend time with your children, you realize things you didn't know about them, and you get to see like new developments that maybe had missed your attention because of the usual busybody we are. So that's one thing I'm grateful for. And trying to be a teacher as much as it's not my cup of tea because of my level of patience and frustration. Because it can be adapted. I always say I can only teach adults. Children is not my cup of coffee. But the problem why I say looking through smoke is like we had tried to develop a routine whereby after 2 days I'd put the kids in the car. As we go around, you'd realize, okay, they would notice and read things out loud, like that's the hospital, this is our route to doing this. We've managed to start small plays together. But then you see now the government also throws in the spanner. Right now we have limitations of how many people can be in a car, So I think in my case, yes, my nanny is helping. You can't leave any of the children behind. I can't go on my own. So I have to come with my eldest because he's now like my support system at the moment when it comes to caring for them. So when they say that, you see, without considering us, it's quite a blow. So the other thing that I tried to do is take them to I spoke to their school because there are no people there. So I take them there with the bicycle, and then at least they have the play structures. They go and run there. So there, you're just you as a family. And you're walking with your hand sanitizer, like, the way the guns are. You tell them don't touch, and then you don't touch. So that's just a dream. So you just weigh your risks and try and mitigate what you can do. But then what to do? We are closer now and trying to live adopt to the new environment and the challenges and embrace them. And the good thing that I can say that has come out of it is also now, I think my neighbors are not shouting at me anymore because I'm not getting noise of keeping it down, especially after the feature we did on TV the other day, because that means our awareness has gotten out there. People are trying to see and they can understand what it is we are going through. So I'm just hoping that it will not end. No, it won't end now. And that even after, when life regularizes, people will remember that the children are still who they are and they still need that love and understanding.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you. Caroline, do you have any tips, any opportunities that you've seen?
I think the change has been hard for us all, we have to admit. Sort of being cooped up in the house. And only maybe stepping out to do grocery shopping or essentials, purchasing of whatever is needed. But what we did as a family is that we made small adjustments for the children's schedules. so they don't feel overwhelmed. And then, try and do fun things together. If we're baking, we bake together. They'll make a mess, but then we get to spend quality time together. And then, just going on YouTube to see what fun things we can do. We have extra toilet roll, the toilet roll holders, the brown bits in the middle. We use that to do a bit of painting and a bit of creative stuff. So the kids have really enjoyed the quality time and just us being home a lot. Although for us it feels like, okay, our routine has been changed, but I think the children are thriving a lot from it, and I'm also enjoying the quality family time, and I think the children are more settled when they see you at home, and they're getting all that lots of TLC from you. I think I find that they're enjoying it a lot. So although we feel overwhelmed in terms of being uncertain about tomorrow, I think this is a faith walk. We just have to roll with the punches, take it a day at a time, and just do the best we can. And, take all necessary precautions, like Sylvia said, walking around with that sanitizer and sanitizing every 2 minutes, wiping down the house, with Jik, and cleaning up all the time. I think that's a bit of the anxiety that we need to manage the best way we can. And probably also, minimizing on social media what message is out there, what news is out there, and just trying to see what's making you a bit anxious at the moment, and just trying to minimize on that. And then, what you're thriving from, what makes you happy, and sort of increasing more on that as well. Yeah. And also what we've been doing is, lots of phone calls, lots of video chats to regularly connect, say, with the grandparents, other family members, and other close friends as well. So that's been very helpful for us.
Thank you. Has either of you, just to follow up on the tips that you're sharing, has either of you seen or has had access to targeted messaging that caters to your children during this period?
That, I think, like Gemini, especially for apps and stuff like that, this is being you're getting a lot of like speech therapy programs being thrown your way, in terms of, I know I got from Gemini, I got from speech bubbles or something like that. But the thing is, you get so excited because you're seeing an outlet, like, yay, something I can do, something they can do that will build them, because now electronics have become more like a comfort. So you're having more screen time, as much as they say we should be reducing. For some of us, that's the only time you will be able to take a rest, so to speak.
Yeah.
That's what they want, and they learn differently. Mine are heavily visual, and sing along is the thing. So with these ones, as much as you want to engage with them, once you start filling in your information, you get somewhere, then there is a big price tag on it. Right now, of course, finances are tight. Okay, I'm sure it's everyone, but for us, in my particular family setup, right now, you cannot, as much as it is important, it feels more like a luxury than just getting by to ensure that they have everything else that they need. So the messages are coming, and maybe one of the other things on the tips that we're seeing is the sing-along games. We're trying to nurture now for the kids to be singing, and try to use the other free online tools for parents to use to get them engaged, because anything visual actually gets them really interested.
Great, thank you. Caroline, do you want to add on that?
I find that the more screen time the kids have, the more, like our toddlers, they get very anxious and they want to constantly be on the screen or on the iPad, on the phone. So for us, we've just, when the weather's bad, then we try and do a lot more activities, like, something they can do, practical things in the house, but we're really minimizing on the screen time. For us, we find that it's just not been very good for them. It makes them a lot more anxious, because then when we introduce other activities, they'd rather be, sort of on the screen, as opposed to doing other practical activities. So we've just been focusing more on the practical activities. for now. I think that for them has been created a lot more stability. And kids are different. And what works for us may not work for other people, but we find that works for us more.
Are there any initiatives that are targeting families with children with disabilities, or families of persons with disabilities? I'm curious. I'm not sure what is available out there.
I think if you look at the international media, because it depends with which platform you're on social media like that, you will find we have advisories on how to handle and how to try and deal with the children at this time. But locally, first of all, I think we've been segregated, for lack of a better word, as the neurodiverse community for a very long time. If you look, they will talk about the blind, they will talk about those on wheelchairs and stuff like that, but our children are not being considered per se. Only the past few days after the president announced about funds is when you're seeing a lot of discussion around disability. But then, if you look at it still, there is a survey that I've been doing for the past 1 week, and the caution that most parents are feeling left out is, even as this discussion is coming, there is so many people suffering. We have parents who've lost so much, because out of the many groups, all I'm seeing is this frustration. And we actually have a platform where we've said nothing to do with COVID will be posted here. It's just support of each other, because it's also becoming so much and it's so negative. In my house, we only watch like the briefing to know where the numbers are. Then we get back to like our turn taking of this one likes this one likes this.
Thank you. Caroline?
I haven't seen much locally in terms of support from the government for families with children with disabilities, or families and grown-ups with disabilities as well, people living with disabilities. And I have been wondering, say for example, my son did get the COVID and, he was required to be admitted. How is the structure on the ground for children with disabilities? How are they supporting families? Are you allowed to go and stay with your child? Of course you'd have to. I mean, there'd be no way around that, because they can't even manage our kids without our help. So, all those things do go on behind our minds, and we do worry, because, apart from dealing with the normal day-to-day things, that we have this peculiar thing that we are overburdened with on a daily basis, and I think that mothers and fathers who are taking care of children with intellectual disabilities are really at risk of increased mental health issues, because we don't have an outlet. No one's talking about it. No one is following up for you. We have our support systems, maybe with the family, but a lot of people are burdened by themselves and keeping information to themselves and just feeling a bit overwhelmed, because we also feel like the government in place isn't really sort of supporting us like they should. And I found in the UK, when I lived there, that parents, they have a proper social welfare system going on, and they really do care about their people, and they care about their disabled more than anything. And they do put proper structures in place, and they support you financially, materially, and they're there. Here you might be unemployed and you have to support this child, and you have to be there, and their carer, like you said, and pair care work is just, it's like nothing like you've ever experienced, especially when you have a child with a disability. It's really challenging. It's very hard. The services just aren't enough, and we really, really just need to stand up and come together and just really push for this agenda. But, as it is, I feel like the government is already struggling to manage the situation, and, they're not really sort of thinking about the nitty-gritties of people with disabilities and how that will work. I think when they're faced with that situation, then they deal with it. But in terms of, a plan for us, I'm not sure they have one really.
Yeah. The levels of preparedness within our governments are, it's very clear that we are not prepared for crisis situations. Otherwise, for me, I think it would have made sense to ensure that the most vulnerable in the society is taken care of. We start with that as a default setting, and then build other systems on top of that. How do you, as mothers with children on the spectrum, how do you support them to ensure their autonomy and that they're able to make, decisions?
Okay, I think children with special needs have different capabilities regarding their own decision making, but I feel like they can make choices with support. And that's really what we've been trying to do with our Ethan and the children at the school. So we have quite a few older boys at our school, and what we've been doing is just trying to get them to learn life skills, because I think that will be the basis of how they will be integrated into our society. Because at the moment there is actually no plan for our children in terms of how they will go out there and how they will live their life. But if they're able to support themselves and learn a skill that will be able to help them in regards to, being able to, be structured and support themselves, I think that will be very, 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 very important and key. And we need to start doing that now. I have a friend who lives in the Netherlands, and we talk a lot about autism, and he tells me that they have industries there that and companies that only hire people on the autism spectrum, for example, and they have a proper social welfare system, proper infrastructure that works impeccably. If the bus is meant to be here at 11:10, it's here at 11:10, and our children thrive on routine. And if we had such a structure, it would work. But in the absence of such a structure, we're just managing the best way we can. And the reality is that we will have to be our children's support for a very long time. But if we can teach them to be more self-sufficient and to be able to do things for themselves, then they will begin to know that they can do things for themselves, and they are able and are capable of doing a lot more than people would imagine that they can do. But with encouragement and support, and that constant, pushing and encouragement, and just routines, doing the same things over and over again, they will be able to do things for themselves. So one day they might even have families, who knows, and they will be running their own businesses. I think they could be very good entrepreneurs as opposed to being in employment. And I think that's just how we see it, and that's really what we're doing in terms of being able to support our children in decision making for the future for themselves.
Thank you, Caroline. Sylvia, do you have any thoughts?
For me, at the moment, considering the stage I'm at with my kids, that is, we're at the pre. So it's now that they're grasping the concept of understanding there is no, that I have a voice also. So as much as we're trying to give them the freedom to know that, yes, they have a voice, we're also trying to teach responsibility at the same time. So as there's trying to communicate what they want, you give the options with repercussions that to get them to understand, like at this time, I want to play and I want to go outside. So you try with the simplest way to explain to them that you can't go out because XYZ, and try and relate it with something they're familiar with. So this is just the beginning of molding them for decision-making skills so that they're able to make the wise choices. My youngest is easier because he's starting to communicate faster since we put him in a special school. So he understands the decision. So you can give him options like either this or that, and he's able to articulate what it is that he wants. So mostly the challenge will be with Andrew. But when it comes to the future, I am saying that let me work so hard to see and influence policy and structure so that it is so inclusive that if anything happens, God forbid that I'm not here, at least I can rest in peace knowing that there are structures that will sort of take care of the children. because not everyone will embrace him for who he is. Not everyone will understand that he would be slower to process like questions and the pressure that surrounds him. So if we do it now, and if we mold the future generations to be more understanding and to embrace difference, then that means the future will be brighter for them. And so we pray that at least there will be some change in the community.
Great. Thank you. And to piggyback on the policy advocacy, what would be, some of the best ways and some key messages that should be disseminated now? And possibly in building this critical mass that we're talking about, the strength in numbers, what can we do in our various spaces to amplify the situation of children with disabilities in this particular context? Sylvia?
At the moment, I think as we're trying to speak up, if we could get backup in terms of, let's see what we're exposed to. If it is the media platform, if we're championing so that at least the media is more inclusive, trying to explain what coronavirus is and that. If we could have people who have access to media to amplify and give a voice, because you see sometimes when you're a lone ranger, and you're trying to shout. You can shout all you can, but not many people will hear you. Of course, there are more heavyweight, there are more experienced people in the field. It's a time where we have to come together as one, right? Because if we continue with the divisions that already are even in the disability space from personal experience, we won't move far. It's time for unity. It's time for us to advocate more and harder. Be in the let our plight be known, despite us being always in the background and hiding our children due to fear of stigma. There is no more time for playing or I need to be private and stuff, because we've seen parents committing suicide. We've seen a mother die and leave an unverbal child and the body is discovered 3 days later. We've seen people going, I have a parent who calls and saying that they're about to be evicted, they don't know what to do. Another one got laid off, they're already struggling and they're wondering what else do they do from here, because you have a sick child, you don't know where your next income is going to come from, you've just been laid off, your contract has been terminated. So all these stories need to be given a platform to be voiced so that at least government knows that there are people who need their support, and everyone else who's around you needs to know that there is someone who needs help. And also just being neighbors. If you've ever realized that, that child looks like they are different, then check up on them. Even if you maintain social distance, go with your mask, but just knock on that door. Because the level of loneliness right now is soaring up to, I don't know who to talk to. And one other parent reached out. Yes, we are the voice on the ground, but then I personally don't have the capacity to carry someone else's burden. I have on my plate right now. So where do they go? You'll try to do the best you can. But you see, the same government that's supposed to be helping us is still referring these parents for us to continue working with them. So who will be the one who will be standing for you? So those are some of the challenges that are like at this point. What needs to go out is the government needs to step up. The structures, we can't rely on the past. We need to readjust the structures that are there now to ensure we get everyone. Everyone meaning that inclusion should be totally inclusion. It's always been about physical disability. It's about time that the neurodiverse community is also looked into, because at this time, we are the ones who are suffering more. If you ask. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Caroline?
I don't know if I can add a lot more to what Sylvia said, really. But I think what we need to do for each other is just to be our brother's keepers and check up on people might be struggling right now or going through difficult times, because we are going through that. And, send a message, quick phone call. If you have something extra you can send to somebody, do that. Because it's such an uncertain time, so uncertain for all of us, because also kids are not going to school, some parents are not working, parents who are running businesses are struggling, to make ends meet. Employed people have no job security right now. It's just really difficult for everybody. So as a nation, we just need to stick together and be more patient with each other, be more inclusive, and, share information that will be beneficial for example, parents on, taking care of children with disabilities, and just seeing where opportunities are, and just being able to share that information with other people as well on how they can benefit as well. So for now, just taking it a day at a time, and just hoping for the best, and just hoping we get past this in one piece, and that we're all safe at the end of it all. It's really my take. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ladies. I really enjoyed this conversation. We've come to the end of our session for today, and we're so grateful for your participation. Let's remember to continue the conversation on our social media platforms. If you would like to join the conversation as a guest speaker or discussant, please get in touch by sending an email to paza@this-ability.org. Remember to like and share our content on Twitter @PAZA Podcast. For more content on Disabilities work and projects, please follow Disability on Twitter and Instagram @this_ability_KE, and on Facebook @disability.ke. Speak soon and stay safe.